Hello and welcome back to the weekly challenge video where we challenge you to do something comic related and then we judge you on your output. Last week I asked you guys to make some edits, make some changes, and try again at making some premises for some short comics. And you guys delivered a whole bunch. You did all sorts of edits on your plots, and some new people participated. And basically, I found a winner. And the winner this week is Shamwolf. And the reason that I like what Shamwolf did here is that they were very simple and very focused. I think a lot of you guys came up with all sorts of different plots and there was multiple layers to them. And I think that's great when you are actually creating a story. Before this, I wanted to see very narrowed down plots because basically, being able to narrow down plots, strip things to the very basics, the very minimum, is how you can braid things together a lot easier. It's like a way to critically look at a plot that's not working and break it down and like really understand it. So like getting to the basics was kind of the point of it. And I found a lot of the other submissions still kind of got muddied in all sorts of like other details, or some of the types of plots were still a little confusing to some of you. But for the most part, I think it was a simplicity thing that I wanted to see exhibited. And the reason that I am starting out with the winner here is just because I want to announce the next challenge. And so for the next challenge, I want you to take Shamwolf's plots and I want you to write an 8-page comic script. So this is an actual script. I'm not looking for 8 pages of physically writing script. I want a script that equates to 8 pages. I want specifically 8 pages. I want you to exist within those binds. I don't want a script that doesn't account for an amount of pages. I don't want a script that's 10 pages. I don't want a script that's 5 pages. I want 8 pages of comics, and we will judge them based on pace, character, everything. Just the best script, be as creative as you want, whereas this challenge I wanted something more specific and more direct. And what I want these 8 pages to be of is of one or multiple of Shamwolf's plots. Another thing I really like about these plots is that they're a lot more open-ended, so we'll be able to make some characters for them as well. So add whatever characters you want, as long as it falls within the realm of these 4 plots. So I don't want every single 4 plot. I mean, I guess you could add all 4 of them if you really wanted to, but one or multiple of these layered together, or any other elements you want to add to them. I just want to see one of these 4 plots at least like exhibited within your script. So that is the challenge for next week. So let's go over some of these plots. So the location plot. So a location plot, I will say it till I'm blue in the face, is about going from one place to the other. So very simply, we have a rogue that gets thrown into a fantasy world and must find a way home. By the end, she finds an escape route and she leaves the fantasy world. Very simple, easy one to work with. Next, we have a werewolf is killed, mysteriously framing the vampire investigator, so they must find the real killer. By the end, the vampire finds the real killer was their partner all along. So there you go. That's another plot that's very simple, very good. It's very basic, but that is what I was looking for. Very keyed into what an answer plot is about. Next, we have the character plot. A princess feels scared and nervous about the responsibilities of ruling as a queen. By the end, the princess realizes that she is ready to rule. Again, very basic, but it really keys in on like a character plot. And finally, we have the event plot, which is a witch goes to a coven meeting, but is attacked by witch hunters. By the end, they fight off the hunters, chasing them off. Again, we have a status quo being ruined. You know, we were supposed to have our little cozy coven meeting, but that didn't work out. I think this was a very strong event plot, and just all in all, these are very good jumping off points. We can fill these with nice, good midpoints, middle bits that are happening, but these are the frameworks for what you guys will submit next week. And as our winner, I'd like to shout out Shamwolf and what they do. You can find their link tree where they do some awesome anthro commissions, 10 out of 10. You can follow them on Blue Sky if you are there. Yeah, just check out their art. They did awesome on this challenge and they deserve all of y'all's attention. Thank you, thank you. Now I'll quickly go over some of the submissions from last week that weren't the winners. I'm not going to read through them all super in depth because I did all of that kind of last week. So first we had Rumple Stiltskin, and they did a really strong job with their location plot where they really honed in on making a location plot that was very direct. I found that with the other plots that were presented that they were bogged down by a lot of details, and especially in the case of the event plot, there was a layering of character plot that occurred. And again, I was looking for everything to be very focused with this. So with the event plot, a witch's familiar knocks over an important spell, at first frustrating the witch. However, the witch then realizes that the actions made by the spell were more powerful, and they apologize to their familiar for getting upset. So we have like this tension between the familiar and the witch, and like the witch's character flaw taking a lot more focus than the actual event of like a spell mishap which occurred. And much like with the location plots about going from one place to another, I think that writing down the basics of the plot can feel very boring, so there might be like an impulse to add this like character dimension to it, but we can't do that. Basically, the layering of plots should like occur later, whereas like fixating in on what the plots are is kind of like important. Focusing in on each specific type of plot on its own is important, especially when we consider things like scope, right? Like if we're thinking about the scope of a comic, each time we add one of these elements, whether it's event, character, answer, or location, we're adding another like exponential growth to the comic. So if we aren't identifying that this event plot that we have is actually two plots, like that can be an issue for scope, because you're creating two different endpoints that you need to reach without quite realizing it. And that's like one of the reasons why I want to like really focus down on these elements. And it's also important for when you are creating middle parts, larger plot points, you need to be hitting these beats and kind of aligning them to the plots that you are setting up as well. Next we had Cinti, and this was a location plot. For these ones, I liked how simple they were, but they didn't all match what they were like supposed to be. So the first one, the location plot, is not a location plot. It is an answer plot, because we have a group of teens that head to a haunted house and go search to prove the existence of ghosts. That is much more of an answer plot. There is a question that you are setting up. Are there ghosts here? This is not about going to a place and leaving or being able to reach a place. The intrigue, the conflict here is not about the going. It is about, are there ghosts here? And I think a lot of you guys, when you got tripped up with location plot, it was about this aspect that confused you, was just because a location is central to a plot doesn't mean that it is a location plot. You know, having a house party that goes crazy isn't a location plot. It is an event plot, you know? We have a house party and a whole bunch of rowdy teens show up and start causing mayhem. That is a plot that happens at a location. The location is central to it, but it is an event plot. And usually event plots do kind of focus on a location because status quo tends to be a much larger element. I think that can be helpful in identifying an event plot. And in this case, to prove ghosts exist, that is a question. Do ghosts exist? You're creating a mystery. And that was the issue that I took with that. But otherwise, I liked how simple it was, and I liked how keyed in it was. Your answer plot was very to the point, and the keyed in simpleness worked when they were doing their answer plot. Their answer plot ended up being very keyed in and perfect for an answer plot. Same with the character plot. That was very good. This was the only issue that I actually had with it, was this location plot was not a location plot, because otherwise I think the answer, character, and event plots were all perfectly keyed in to like what they were supposed to be. They were succinct, they were to a point. It was just the location plot where you tripped up, but otherwise it was very good. And that moves me on to Not Your Changeling, which had the exact same thing, where they honed in super well with their answer, character, and event plot. But the location plot, again, was about a location, a haunted house as well, where it doesn't feel like the plot is about going somewhere. It is a plot that happens when they get somewhere. So if we wanted to key in on the story of a location plot, we would want it to be like characters are trying to reach a haunted house party. So a realtor is asked to remove a ghost from a haunted house. When he leaves, he quits his job in protest. The problem that exists here is that this doesn't focus on a location. It's a plot that centers a location, but is not a plot about going to a location. It's not a plot about reaching a location. This is a plot about not just character, it is about an event as well. It feels much more event focused, where the status quo is kind of shaken with this realtor having to deal with like a haunted house, trying to remove a ghost. We could say that the status quo is that the realtor hasn't had to deal with ghosts before, and now the realtor has to deal with ghosts. You know, like that is something else entirely. Whereas if we wanted to strip this down, we could say like maybe the realtor has to reach a room in the house to get some paperwork, but there's ghosts in the way and stuff. Like that would be an obstacle created by things, or they get scared and it's difficult to reach where they want to reach. But a location plot is about physically moving from one place to another place, rather than it being about a place. Next, we have Bambootalks, and I think that they did a really good job at coming up with 4 different plots that align with everything. My only issues were like very nitpicky, especially in the case of like the character and event plot. Like things got a little bit blurry, but not too much. These plot lines were like very close second in my mind. And I especially like the location plot of a poltergeist is accidentally relocated after the previous tenants moved all their stuff out. It must find its way back home in an unfamiliar world. I liked seeing a bunch of stories within the same world, but I think when I was trying to come up with like the 8-page comic thing, it left less room for like other people to work with it. So that was just more of like a nature of the assignment thing. Because otherwise, I think these are all very strong. Next, we have Chyros. And again, like, I think these ones were all really good. And these were definitely, like, in the ring to be, like, top tier for me. I think I was only, like, a little iffy on the event plot, but only because I was looking for, like, a very eventy event plot. I think this is still a very strong event plot, and I could see how you could tie it with the character, but then it didn't end up being like tied with like the character plot, which is good, which is what I wanted. But I was just looking for like a very eventy event plot. I give it to the most eventy event plot I could find. Because otherwise these are all very strong, and they were definitely in the running. Next we have Cheese. The location plot was good. It was about reaching a place. It was a little bit layered, but not so much that it wasn't a location plot. The answer plot is wild. I guess it is an answer plot. I will say that. I guess we as readers get the answer to the end at the end of that one. Whereas I guess, yeah, that is an interesting take. I do like it. The more I think about it, yeah. Next we have character. The character plot feels less like a character plot to me. It feels kind of location-y. It's about character trying to reach and steal a thing. I think this is a location plot the same way your answer plot is an answer plot, where you're writing kind of tragedies where we as readers get to see the ending part, whereas like the characters are not getting the ending. Whereas like these people in this case are trying to reach a place and fail at it. Two thieves break into an old house to look for something valuable to steal. They find a necklace and take it back with them. So we have a location plot. It's just there's consequences at the end of their location plot, whereas we are not actually dealing with them as characters, because as soon as they walk out the door, the spirit dwelling within curses them to give more than they take. So there's no actual character development happening here. It's like kind of the beginning of character development mixed with kind of events. Kind of when you think about it, at the end we start with the event caused by a location plot, but there's been no character growth. Just because someone's cursed doesn't mean they get character growth. The growth usually happens after a curse. As someone who writes curses, I would know. And then we have an event plot, which does feel a lot more like a character plot, where it is a character whose grandmother passes away and they get a cat and that helps them with their grief. So that's a story about processing grief. I think the cat is tangential to that. I don't think a cat actually causes that. It's just a way that the character plots, you know. It's a way that they move through their grief, and that is much more character plotty because it starts with being, you know, emotionally dysregulated from the death of their grandparent, and then using a cat to find their emotional regulation again, and grief and all that. So that's much more character plot-y. Then we have Chowder, who went and detailed the plots of Shrek with Lace, and they did a very good job, but I know that they've already done this before, so I'm not impressed. Pick another movie. Loser. Ursula, can you flash a picture of Charlie's cursed dog VTube thing? Can you just like stretch it across the screen slowly for me? Thank you. Next we have Snuffy. So we have a location plot, and it is very location-y. It feels a little event-y, but like it's still location-y, so I'll give it to you. The city becoming perilous does add something to it. I think it's just because the city is becoming something else, is making the status quo shift. But when we think about it, the story is more about getting through this rather than fixing the perilousness. So I think it's still a location plot. I've talked myself back around in the circle, and you're right, I'm wrong. Next, for the answer plot, it feels a little bit charactery. I think it's just because she's having to come to terms with what she's seeing. But I think there is a way of phrasing this plot in a way that makes it more of an answer plot. I think it does have a lot to do with the mysteries of the city, but I think this does separate into two different plots along the way. And again, I think all of these plots are things that can work, and you don't always have to overthink a plot like this, but just for this exercise, I wanted things to be very concise. Their character plot also is very good, very strong, a little wordy, but you know, it's fine as a character plot. And finally, the event plot does feel like an event plot, but it also just felt a little vague, and I would like just like a little more detail. It's the first time I felt I needed a bit more detail about like what this plot is. It feels like Silent Hill is being evoked here, and I would say Silent Hill is a very event-y experience, being summoned to Silent Hill. It's a bit of a location plot, isn't it? Huh. I haven't thought about Silent Hill and the plottings within it. There'd be a lot of plots. That's the trick, is you can pull these apart, you know? Anyways, it is an event plot, though. Snuffy did a good job. They're just a little more big, and I'd like them to be a lot more focused in just for the purpose of this. But otherwise, it is good. Lucia did a great job as well. I found the location plot was very good. The answer plot, I'd like it to be a little more direct about like what information is kind of being sought, like what is the question. I would just like that a little more focused in. That would help. The character plot's good, event plot is good, but yeah, just like a little more focus on the answer plot, but otherwise it was all very good. Then we have Elliot, and with Elliot, the location plot was strong, very direct. I liked the answer plot as well, because I was saying that like a character plot, like there can be answer plots that are about finding character information, and I like how this one was constructed to feel more like an answer plot without it feeling like a character plot, because it very much focused on the mystery of this character rather than the relationship between this character and whoever is like pulling apart the information. I think the character plot could need a little work. I think it might be just the phrasing of it, because a character plot is about a change. So there is a change occurring. I guess it kind of feels like we're leading into the middle of the story here, and I'm not sure fully on this character plot. I just like it to be like a little more direct. And I think this is like a little more of a character plot as well, because if we're thinking of it as a change in character, and sometimes, you know, stories can take place over like an evening, right? Like they don't have to be a fundamental character change, but this seems more like a story about feeling bad, having being in a bad emotional state, and using friendship and like communication to like soothe that, rather than it being any sort of like status quo upset. Though it does feel like I can see how it can be interpreted in a more event lens, but it does feel like a character plot. And I think one of like the assessment tools you use for when you're thinking about these is like, what are the obstacles along the way? And the obstacles are all relating to the character's state of mind and needing personal growth in a way to overcome the nightmare and discomfort that they're feeling. There's also a little bit of a location plot happening, I guess, that could exist, because it's waking up from a nightmare and then visiting someone. So there is the process of going somewhere, but there's not the process of like fixing the status quo change, because I guess like a nightmare's not real. It's more like an emotional impact on the character that's happened. But yeah, those are all my notes on everything that you guys submitted. Again, thank you all for joining these challenges every week. I hope I described everything well enough. I hope that you guys write a cool script this week. Remember, it's 8 pages based on the 4 plots at the beginning of this. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one, where I will be looking over all of y'all's scripts, telling you who's the winner. And yeah, all right, goodbye. See you in the next one. I keep saying that. Wait, Starlight. Remember to like and subscribe. There, I did it.